So let's get started. And for those of you that have never been before, IO as one of them, welcome. These sessions are exactly 60 minutes. We have a hard stop on the hour. This time we have a guest, someone I'm very excited about. I'll tell you about our special guest for this particular session. But before we do that, just a few more things. One of the things that we do is we want to help make the world a better place. So one of the things we do is whenever we run a live session, a live stream or a webinar, one of the things we do is we make a contribution for everybody that shows up live to a worthy project around the world through the amazing B1G1 organization. And for the month of March, it's March this month now, for the month of March, whenever you show up live to one of our live sessions, as a thank you for you being here, we will make a contribution on your behalf. And the project for March is to help people in this case, Tigray, where they're not as privileged as us. So for each and every one of you, we'll be providing access to clean, life-saving water for a day. At the end of the session, we get told how many people show up live, and then we make the contribution. So thank you for being here. When you attend a live session, you help make the world a better place. Second, very quick announcement. One of the things, if you've not been to the last few live streams this year, I wrote a new ebook back end of last year on a topic that everyone struggles with: how to price cleanup work. It looks like this is a 28-page ebook. If you've not got your copy of this yet, my partner Sarah will put into the comments box a link if you want to grab a copy of that ebook. And the last thing I want to just mention as well is we officially launched about a week ago, off the back of the Profitable Bookkeeping Conference, we launched a new entry-level academy. I know many of you come to these regular live sessions, and it's not the right time right now for you to join the Value Pricing Academy. It may be one day you want to. So what we introduced was an entry level, a place to get started. It's called the Profitable Growth Academy. I'm not going to say any more than that, other than to put a link into the chat box. Sarah's going to do that. She'll put a link into the comments box if you want to check that out. We have a very, very special arrangement for founder members right now, where you'll be able to access the Profitable Growth Academy for way less than half price, forever. So that'll be in the chat box as well, in the comments box. Okay, let's get started, because we have a very special guest I'm going to introduce very, very soon. His name is Will Kintish. I first met Will. I forget, I'll ask him when I bring him on, but I know that I was running my accounting firm at the time. As most of you know, I started my accounting firm as a sole practitioner in 1996. And if you know me well, you'll know that I'm an extreme introvert. I really, really struggle with any kind of group situation. And when you're starting a new accounting firm, everyone says you must go to networking events. And I hated networking events. I would turn up and either I'd know nobody in the room and I'd panic, or occasionally I might see somebody I knew. Perhaps my bank manager was in the room, but he was talking to some other people, and I felt, well, I can't really interrupt. I'll hover around here and hope he spots me at some point and comes across to me. I hated networking. I avoided it as much as I possibly could. And then I was lucky to meet Will. And I forget when it was. I think it was about the turn of the century. And he is, as far as I'm concerned, the number one trainer, the number one expert in the world, helping accounting profession become confident in meeting new people, in networking. And I've known Will for many, many years. It's probably over 20 years now. And I've heard him speak many times. He's absolutely brilliant. So I'm really honored to bring Will on. We're going to have a conversation around how to be confident at things like networking events, how to be more confident and know what to say. So I think Will is there. Hi there, Will.
Good afternoon, Mark.
Great to see you. You're looking great. And
I'm in fine form, except I'm really, really upset. Looking at the state of your healthy face, I look as though I need to get some sunshine. I'm going to have to go out and buy a sun lamp, having done this session today.
Yeah, well, you could always come out to Lisbon sometime.
Yeah, there is that. Maybe buying a sun lamp might be cheaper.
So I'm looking forward to the session because I've not seen you, Will, since pre-COVID now, which feels like it seems like forever. So I've got I'm going to be making notes because I know you're going to be sharing some huge knowledge bombs with everybody. I've got loads of questions for you, Will. I did forget to say, actually, if anybody else has a question for Will at any point in time, put it in the comments box. And those of you who have been regularly know the drill, put 2 capital Q's in front because sometimes people comment. Please do comment throughout. But if it's a question, put 2 QQs in front. That way it'll jump out, I'll spot it. And at some point I'll ask your question of Will. So Will, I guess I'm going to start with my first question is a 2-parter. And that is, firstly, very quickly, what are some of the key insights that people are going to get in the next 40, 50 minutes? And secondly, just by way of background, I mean, you are brilliant at teaching people how to be great at networking, but what got you to this place? What's your journey been like? What's your background?
Okay. The takeaways, Mark, I'm going to put under 3 headings. You've already alluded to it, that when you first started, you were nervous. Fortunately for me and my business, a very, very large percentage of people would rather eat their left arm than go networking. So I'm going to talk about overcoming people's fears. That's number 1. Number 2, I think when you promoted this today, the headline was, "Are you a nosy Parker?" And we'll cover that in asking the right questions and making sure that we don't ask certain questions. So asking questions is number 2 on my list. And number 3, again, many professional people are what I call networking criminals. They might spot an opportunity, but they don't follow it up. So we can cover some of that as well. So those are my 3 main headings. And you asked me about my career. Well, look at me, everybody. I'm a fossil. I'm somebody from a past era because I've actually been working now for 59 years in August. How about that? I started work in 1964. I got thrown out of my office. I got thrown out of school at 16 and told to go and be an accountant. And that's what I did for the next 36 years, like you, Mark. Chartered accountant. I'm still a chartered accountant, everybody. I remained in practice until the 31st of May in the year 2000, when I left accountancy. And since then, all I've basically been doing in the last 23 years is showing people like you, my audience, how to become an effective and confident networker. So I've had 2 completely different careers. And as long as nobody asks me when I'm going to retire, I won't fall out with anybody because retirement is not on my agenda.
Awesome. Same here. I can't imagine what life could possibly be like without having, as everyone who knows who's here, I love teaching accountants. I love going live, and I can't imagine not doing that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I do a lot of charity work, volunteering. I have a big family. I've moved from Manchester down to London. For those of you who don't know, that's 200 miles, 300 kilometers. Moved 18 months ago. So I spend a lot of time with my 3 children and 7 grandchildren. But I'm still working.
Awesome. And I was chatting with Will just before we went live because we were both talking about, some of you may know this name, we were both talking about Peter Thompson because we are both big fans of Peter Thompson. And if you missed that session in November, he was on the show, Peter. That was an amazing session talking about the sales process and the words to use and the questions to ask in a sales setting. So if you missed Peter's session, check that out. But both Will and I know Peter extremely well. And I think, Will, you've spoken for some of Peter's events over the years.
I have indeed. And I paid him lots of money to learn so much. He's been a massive influence in my life. Him and Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie, I went on a management course 2 years before I left accountancy, and that whetted my appetite for doing what I'm doing, because as you'll know, Mark, you of all people, he wrote that very famous book in 1936, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And when you think about that, as far as I'm concerned, one of the definitions of networking is how to win friends and influence people. So although the word wasn't mentioned in the book, as far as I'm concerned, that was the first book, and as far as I'm concerned, is the Bible of networking basics.
Absolutely, and I was doing last week. I had the privilege to have 5 Value Pricing Academy members, accountants and bookkeepers, come and visit me in Portugal, and for a few days of working on our businesses. And one of the things we did is let's share our favourite business books. And actually, that one came up on my list. It's one of those timeless classics that's it'll never be out of date.
Nope.
Okay, so let's talk about. I suppose the first thing I'd love to know is to be effective at networking. What are some of the core skills, Will?
Well, I'm going to give you right at the beginning, Mark, my 10-word training program. 10 words. So here they are. The first 2, turn up. The next 2, be nice. The third 2, ask questions. The fourth 2, listen carefully. And the fifth 2 is follow up. So those, Mark, are the 10 headlines that I've been talking about for 10 years. Because you mentioned a moment ago about Dale Carnegie and a timeless product. Well, of course, and if you believe in the good book, the first people to network were Adam and Eve. They were just chatting. And it's been very easy for me, my 23-year career, because virtually nothing's changed. Okay, we have expanded onto online networking through LinkedIn and Zoom, of course. But at the end of the day, Mark, you, me, and everybody in the world, we network from the age of 2. Don't tell everybody, but you know what networking is, everybody? It's just talking to people. Isn't that crazy? I've been teaching people and earning a nice living for 20 odd years, teaching people how to talk to each other. I mean, that's all it is. But fortunately for me, my greatest business asset is the actual word itself, Mark, the word networking, because people don't get it. It's just going up to somebody in a room, the right person in the room, and talking to them. I mean, what's hard about that? And if you want me to move on and talk about the fears, should I talk about the 3 key fears?
I think we should, because it should be easy. It should be really, really easy. But I think that, and particularly in our profession, accountants and bookkeepers, we have probably a bigger proportion than society as a whole of introverts. And for me, it just used to fill me with complete fear. So you mentioned the word fear, Will. Let's talk about the fears.
So having done this all those years, I can now distill it down to 3 key fears. The first one, which is a basic human fear for all of us, and that does include me, and I don't just say it, is fear of rejection. Will anyone talk to me when you go into that room? So here's my very, very strong piece of advice. Get there early. I always plan my diary so that I am there 10-15 minutes before the event formally starts. Because, and I'm not just saying this for my audience, I honestly find it a struggle. If I walked into a room, Mark, and there's already groups of people in format and a lot of them know each other, that scares me as much as anybody else. So why put myself through the pain and heartache of having to do it when I can get there early and there's a small number of people and I'll find somebody to talk to because there'll be people on their own, and that makes it a lot easier. So fear of rejection is the first one. The second one is fear of the unknown. Going in there and seeing that mass of people thinking, oh my goodness, I feel as though I've dropped into a deep, dark black hole. What am I going to do? Well, hopefully within this hour, we can talk about the 6 groups. Keep that on the agenda, Mark, for a few moments. The 6 groups. And the third one, and this particularly applies to professionals in general and perhaps accountants in particular, fear of failure. Getting involved in conversations with people where you don't feel in control, where you feel as though people are judging you, people taking, perhaps trying to test you out. You get involved in conversations where it seems other people know more about it than you. And again, I can share with you how to overcome fear of failure. So those are the
Awesome,
three
awesome.
basic fears.
And that, I remember when you first ever told me about that idea of get there early, and what a difference that makes. Because I feared networking, I would always show up late because I didn't want to. I didn't want to walk in the door. It was that scary for me. And then you said get there early, and when you explained the reason behind that, I thought, what a crazy simple idea that is. Priceless.
The other thing about getting there early, when we go to events, unfortunately, a large percentage of the time is spent traveling to get there and traveling to get home. So make the most of that time from leaving home or the office and back there. So cutting down the time that you're at the event is rather a waste, particularly as we all know, we accountants or any professionals are charging for their time. So get there early. And I've got another piece of advice. Become a professional straggler. Stay late. Staying late, in fact, if you said which is the most important, getting there early and staying late, I'd rather you stayed late. Because as the event is winding down, people at that point are more relaxed. People will open up and tell you more things. And the reason we go networking is to spot the aha moment. We spot the aha, the light bulb moment. In other words, if you ask the right questions, somebody might say, to be honest, Mark, I'm not really happy with my accountants. They're not very proactive. That is called an aha moment. That should indicate to you the start of the follow-up. An aha moment I've found over the years, and lots of my audience have told me after I've pointed it out to them, that aha moments seem to come as the event is easing away from the heat of whether there was a speaker or something like that. So hang around at the end, and if there's a few drinks been going around, people will, they're not drunk, of course, I hope, but people will be more relaxed. Mentally, they'll have taken their shoes off and put their slippers on and will tell you more things at the end of an event than at the beginning of an event. So get there early and stay late.
Great advice. You said earlier that you were going to talk. So the second of the fears, the fear of the unknown. You were going to talk about the 6 groups. So I'm really intrigued. I have a feeling you have shared that with me before, but I need to relearn.
Okay. I notice we have a lovely international audience now. Wherever you are, what I'm about to share with you, and this is really showing off. For those of you who find it a bit of a challenge, I'm about to change your life. You see, every room you've ever been in, and every room you're ever going to go into for the rest of your lives, is always formatted in exactly the same way. There are only 6 types of groups in a room. There are 3 open groups, or I call them green groups, and there are 3 red groups. Let's discuss the green groups. The green groups are people with their body language that are saying, come and talk to me. Whereas the red groups are in closed format where they're subconsciously closing it off and creating a barrier. So what are those 6 groups? Well, the easiest format, or it's not actually a group, but the easiest format to approach has to be the person on their own, must be. And the person on their own is always standing against the wall. They're never standing in the middle of the room, Mark, with people around them thinking, oh, I'm having a nice time here by myself. I wish somebody had come and talk to me. They're always standing over there by the wall. Now, Mark, you admitted at the beginning you found it a struggle, and maybe you were one of those people.
I was by the door ready to leave early.
Okay, you were really bad news. But people will stand against the wall, and people stand against the wall for two reasons. Number one, they don't know anybody, because if they did, they'd be in there talking to them. And number two, they haven't been on a Kintish course, so they're scared stiff. So, and do you know what they're doing against that wall, Mark? They're doing this. They're praying. What are they praying for? They're praying for you to go and talk to them. And it's as simple as this. You go up to them slowly, eye contact, nice smile, and you simply say, hello there, please may I introduce myself? Hello there, please may I join you? Or more often than not, these days I go up to them and say, hello, my name's Will. And off it goes. And it's just, I mean, we'll leave the questioning for a bit later, that icebreaker question. Let's talk about the 6 groups first of all. So the first format is the person standing on his or her own. They're the easiest. The other green groups are couples who stand in open format in a V shape. And then the third format are trios, a quadrant or a semicircle. Now, I'm going to be slightly not controversial, but you know, these days, Mark, when we talk about men and women, sometimes we can get into trouble. So I can only generalize. But what I have to say to you, everybody, is we men, more often than not, stand in open format, whereas women, their default position is standing in closed format. This is fact, and I'll explain why in a moment. So I've covered the 3 groups. The ones, the open 2s, and the open 3s. The open 2s and the open 3s, you approach them in the same way as you approach the 1. You go up to them, you don't interrupt, you stand there, you eye contact both of them, very important, and you say, please may I join you. The red groups, the danger groups, the closed groups, 2 people standing on their own, don't go there unless you know somebody there. Their body language is saying, we're having a private conversation. Then you get the trios, a triangle, the closed 3. And then you get the scariest group of all, which is the 4 or more. A 4 is a square, or a 5 or a 6 is a circle. And again, their body language is saying, we're okay at the moment, thanks, stay away. And the reason we get there early, Mark, is pretty obvious. The later you get to an event, the more the groups will be in red format rather than green format, because even the most introverted accountant will have been dragged into a group or will have taken a deep breath and got himself or herself into a group. So getting there early is so important, and to make the most of the time you're there. Those are the 6 groups. They never change.
And one of the things that I remember that's always stuck with me when, from the very first time I met you, when you talked about the situation of if there's somebody on their own, I remember you said, think about it from their point of view. They're on their own, and as you said, they're praying. So when you go up to somebody on their own, that's giving a huge sigh of relief, because finally someone wants to talk to them, and so you become suddenly their new best friend. And the minute you said that, I thought that makes so much sense, because when I'm on my own, I'm praying for someone to talk to me, and so when you realise that's what they're thinking, I just felt so much more confident about going up to somebody on their own and starting a conversation. Whereas before that, I wouldn't talk to anybody. I just wait for somebody to approach me.
And that's why the first fear is, will anyone talk to me? And the strong message from here is, I don't care if they don't talk to you. The principle of networking is to be proactive. You go and talk to them. Don't waste your valuable time. You know, you're charging £200, £300, £400 an hour to stand in the corner on your own. Wow, that is pretty wasted time, isn't it now? Come on. So, yes, it's very important that you get there early and you make the most of the time that you're there.
Yep. Priceless.
Do you
I
want to
noticed
do
that.
any questions or comments at this point?
Yeah, I think there is a comment, so I thought I'd just refer to it in a second. But yeah, I think I'd like to find out more about this idea of asking questions and what are the best questions. But before I do that, Linda Rolfe from Florida said, "That's the funniest thing I've ever heard you say, Mark. Thanks for laugh out loud." That was me, I guess, the comment of me being the one standing by the door. But actually, here's another funny story on the subject of. So I'm still an introvert, and the first time that Sarah and I were invited to speak at QB Connect in San Jose in 2015, so it was the first time we went to the US to speak, and as a result of that, many of the people here from the US and Canada have met me since then. And because I was speaking at QB Connect, they invited me to the special VIP event, which meant that there was a dinner or a networking event the night before to meet all the other speakers, thought leaders, and so on. So Sarah and I are getting ready to go to this place, which is next door to the hotel. And I kept saying to Sarah, I don't think I want to go. I don't know any of these people. I absolutely don't want to go. I'm scared of this. I'm really, really worried. So anyway, we walked. She's dragging me along and saying, no, Mark, we're going to do this. We've been invited. You've got to talk to people. Anyway, as we got to the building next door, we realized it was a really, as it usually is in the US, really stupidly tall building. And Sarah's got a fear of heights. So she drags me, and then she realizes we're on the top floor of this building, and she says, I can't do this either. I can't possibly get in the lift. And I said, well, you've dragged me this far. We're both going to get over our fears, and we ended up getting on the lift. It took a bit of. We were both debating, shall we or shan't we? We really just want to go back to bed, back to the hotel, and back to the bar or to the bedroom or whatever. But no, we did it. We went there, and I remember it was a petrifying experience. But once you start talking to people, suddenly afterwards, I loved it. It was great fun, and I did stay late and met some great friends, and I have lots of great friends in the US now. But yeah, we were both had those different fears and nearly didn't bother.
I'm glad you went. I'm glad you went.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's talk about questions then. What are great questions to ask?
Just a bit of history for everybody. The title of this talk today is "Are You a Nosy Parker?" And it comes from Archbishop Martin Parker from 1550. Where he was the Archbishop and he interfered in everybody's affairs. And he was asking too many questions of the wrong people. So he got that name, Nosy Parker. So there are 4 areas of questioning. The icebreaker question. So we've already alluded to the fact we see somebody on their own, we go up to them, we smile, eye contact, shake hands where it's appropriate. Please, may I join you? Here's the question never to ask. What do you do? I learned this from a man who I'm sure you've heard of, Mark, called Reid Hoffman, one of the founders of LinkedIn. He said, networking is a people thing, not a business thing. So, which it is. But before I give you the icebreaker question, can I just go back just a couple of steps? Networking, I said to you a while ago, is talking to people. But taking it up a notch, networking is building relationships. And I'm sure you've heard this before. Every relationship that has got any meaning for us, social or business relationship, has got to have 3 key steps. The first step in the building of a relationship is know, K-N-O-W. You met Sarah, I met Trudy 60 years ago. Any business contacts we've got, we had to meet them. So the first step in the relationship is to know people. The second step is, for me, the most important word of all, and I bet you talk about it in your training and presentations. The word is like. Because if people don't like us, I don't care how good an accountant you are, I don't care how many qualifications you've got, I don't care how many letters you've got behind your name. At the end of the day, and I hate the phrase, it's a horrible cliche, but it's 100% true, people buy people. And that's why we don't start with, hello, nice to meet you, what do you do? Because we can deal with that later. And the third step in building relationships is trust. Know, like, and trust. And the trust comes when after the event, when we become trustworthy in terms of reliability. So if I meet you at an event and I promise to call you or send you the latest report on accountancy, then to build that trust very early, I must make sure I do it. So that's the basics, everyone, of networking, building relationships, know, like, and trust. So going back to the icebreaker question, as you go up to somebody, I want you to think, I've never met this person in my life, but we do have a lot in common at this point. And one of the things we might not have in common is work, and that's why we don't start with work. We start with something like, where have you traveled from today? Or where did your journey start from? Or what made you come to this conference? Or do you know anyone here tonight? Or isn't this a magnificent room? Look at that chandelier. And off you go. And the conversation will start to develop from that. We can do the business in a moment, but let's start off with a non-business talk to get the show on the road. Okay? So that's the icebreaker question. But then we do get into business questions, and I'd like you all to get disciplined in the way you ask questions of people about their business or their careers. And again, you might be picking up the fact that everything I'm talking to you about has a process. So here's the process for asking questions. You break it down into three, and the basic questions are, what do you do? How did you get to this point? And what plans have you got for the future? Which, Mark, if when you're in general practice, you took on a new client, you would say to them, what did you do? What do you do now? What made you become a whatever it is? And where do you see your business going in the next couple of years? So basically what we're doing, everybody, asking them about their business is if you're taking on a new client. So remember this, people love talking about themselves. So your job to get them to like you is to ask them all about themselves. Dale Carnegie quote, the most interesting people we ever meet are those who are most interested in us. So sometimes I can go away from an event and nobody has asked me anything about me. They don't know anything about me. They might just know I'm a networking skills trainer, but I know damn well they'll go home and talk to the people at home and say, do you know what? I met a really interesting guy, Will Kintish, because Will Kintish spent his time finding out all about them. So I put the focus on them, which again shows that they will like me. Okay, so we've talked about icebreaker questions and we've talked about business questions. Very quickly about business questions, if somebody says I work at such a company, make sure you immediately ask what is your role there, so you can direct your questions to their role. I always want to know the size and scale of a business, because I generally only work with bigger companies or universities or big institutions. I don't dismiss anybody, of course, but it's always nice to judge what sort of a size company. So I always say, how many people do you work with? And the question about the future, simple as this. Where do you see your career going? Or where do you see your business going in the next couple of years? Always put a time scale on it so that they can focus on a time scale rather than have you got any plans for the future, which is a stupid question. One of the questions I absolutely hate is, are you busy? Or how's business? Because most people who are self-employed, our businesses go like that a bit. Or are you busy? Well, this week I'm not busy. Next week I've got 2 paid events. So I always ask this, it's what I call a trend question. How's the year? We're now in March. How's the year started for you? When it gets to June, how's the year going for you? When it gets to October, how's the year gone for you so far? And that way you get much better answers as to, are you busy? Okay. So those are questions about their business. The third set of questions, which for me binds and bonds the relationship, and those are the small talk questions. Now, you've mentioned Sarah to me, or you and Sarah, and then you talked about, I think we'll go home and we'll go to bed, I think is something you said, or we'll go back to the bedroom. So I assumed it was your wife or partner or something. Am I right in thinking that?
Correct, yes.
Okay. But be very careful when it comes to asking about people's family. Mark's audience, wherever you are, if you don't want to upset anybody and destroy a relationship before it gets off the ground, never ask two key questions. Are you married or have you got children? Because when you ask the wrong person the wrong question on the wrong day, you can upset people badly. And I could regale you with many stories of people who've come up to me afterwards and said, I've lost two of my children in a car accident, or I got divorced a few weeks ago, or my husband or my wife ran off with somebody. But you know what, Mark? I can find out about people's personal circumstances by asking this question. So when you don't come to conferences or when you're not working, what do you do in your spare time? Or when it comes to Friday or Monday, what are you doing this weekend? Or what did you do at the weekend? If people have got significant others, husbands, wives, partners, children, they'll say, we did this or we did that. And that gives you a bit of a license to say, oh, who did you do it with? Or how many kids have you got? That's okay. But be very, very sensitive to asking about family. I will mention been married for 52 years, 3 children, 7 grandchildren, and I'll try and throw that in. And very often they will come back to me and say, oh, I've got 9 grandchildren. And of course, the conversation can go nicely forward smoothly because between us, we've got 16 grandchildren and we can share that. So small talk binds and bonds a relationship, and ask people about what their favorite holiday is, what they do in their spare time, where they live, even where they live. Mark, you told me about that you used to live in the UK 2.5, 3 years ago. You moved to Portugal. Before we all went on air, you told me about where you live, how much you love it, etc. That's the small talk that we did, and that bonds the relationship. And then the fourth area. The fourth area is the follow-up. The follow-up questions. Make sure that you understand, everyone, that when we go networking, i.e. building relationships, we are careful not to go into selling mode, because again, we can destroy the relationship before it gets off the ground. So we've had a conversation and something might have been said, and let's repeat what I said earlier on. They might say, I'm not happy with my accountant. Or they might say something, do you know what? I didn't know that. I think I might need to know more about that. Or it might even be something like, you know what? I wouldn't mind having a cup of coffee with you after next week. Those are what we call aha moments, light bulb moments that should indicate to us that this could be the start of a beautiful relationship. So follow-up questions. Now, impression that business cards might be a thing of the past. I mean, I don't know whether they are. A lot of people might take their phone out and say, shall we link in? And that might be a way of connecting without the business card. But let's for the moment talk about business cards. If I spot an aha moment, I'll say because I still have my business cards, shall we exchange cards? I look at their card, I comment on it, I treat their card with absolute respect. I don't just put it in my top pocket, which is sincerely rude. And then I ask the big question. So let's say you say to me, Will, I'd like you to do some training for me, to my audience. I'll go, aha. Mark, do you remember a few moments ago you said you might be interested in talking about me doing some training? And it's at this point, everybody, you look very, very carefully at the person you're talking to. Because what I haven't told you is about the general, I'm having a senior moment, Mark, the general way of asking questions. When you ask questions that are important for you, don't just listen, look at them very carefully. There was a very famous incident a few weeks ago by a lady called Lady Sarah or Susan Hussey, where she said to somebody at a Buckingham Palace event, so where are you from? I don't know whether you knew about this, Mark. Where are you from? And this lady said, well, I'm from Croydon. No, where are you? She was a black lady, and I think she had some interesting headgear. No, where are you really from? She said, no, I'm from Croydon. She said, no, where are you really from? Implying that she might have been born in the bush in Africa. And that caused a lot of upset and furore and hit the newspaper for a week. Had that lady Hussey watched the woman carefully and realized her discomfort, she would have backed off. So when you ask a question that I'm going back to now, so you've shown some interest in me where we might continue the relationship, I'll say, Mark, you said a few moments ago you might be interested in me doing some training. You look them in the eye and you say, how do you feel about me giving you a call? Now, Mark, a lot of our audience don't know this, but you can talk into this there as well as actually type in it. You know that, Mark? It's a phone that you can talk into. Listen, we laugh at this, but the youngsters of today have stopped talking. They only type.
Well, you laugh, but my fear, as well as networking, an even bigger fear for me is the telephone. I when I was in practice running my accounting firm, one of the stupid things that I would do is I'd go and meet potential clients, and I know that I should follow up. I'd send the proposal through the mail, and I'd keep my fingers crossed, hoping they'd ring me, and they never did. And I knew that I should ring them, but I had the fear of the telephone, which is weird because I have no fear of Zoom meetings. I think for me, I don't know what it is, but it's not being able to see body language. It's just a voice coming out of a little box. I find that scary. It's really, really weird. Okay, it's irrational.
Well, if we have people in the audience with the same fears, we're going to destroy that one as well. Okay, I'm watching the time. So I've said to you, Mark, how do you feel about me giving you a call perhaps next Wednesday and let's continue this conversation? If you say no, send me an email or get in touch with my secretary. Okay, but if possible, I want your mobile number and I'm going to call you. Okay, I might even say, is there any best time of the day for me to call you? And often they say no. And what I do say is, so I don't forget, I'm just going to jot down Wednesday on the back of the card. I leave you, I write and remind myself 2 or 3 important things you've said to me, which I will regurgitate when I phone you next week. Okay? Now, let's now focus on this follow-up, networking criminal. And this is the key. Mark, when you sent a proposal to somebody, you sent a proposal because I'm guessing either it was a new business or they weren't happy with their existing advisors. Is that correct?
It is, but also in the early days of running my accounting firm, I had this fear of talking about price. I was happy to talk to a brand new client and show off my knowledge and share tax ways I could save them tax. And the meetings would always go really, really well until they'd ask that question I used to hate, which was, so Mark, this sounds awesome, but what will it cost? And I would panic at that point in time because I didn't know how to have a pricing conversation. So I said, great question, leave it with me. I'll go and do a proposal and I'll put it through the mail. Because I want to avoid that conversation in case they said those words that we all hate in the profession. Oh, that's a bit expensive. So I thought if I send it through in a letter or an email, that'll be much easier. But then I never followed up, and so I lost so much business because I was Essentially, I was a coward.
Okay. You have knowledge, experience, and expertise, Mark, like everybody has. And at the end of the day, and I don't know, but I'm 99.9% sure, the fee you were gonna charge is that much. Oops. But the value they were going to get from Mark Wickersham's was that much. So by not following them up, you are doing them a disservice. And this is what my audience, I want you to hear this, for those of you who have the same fears as Mark. Unless you're a con man or a con woman, at the end of the day, the value they're going to get from you is going to be substantially greater than the fee you're going to charge them. You know this now, Mark. Had you learnt it 30 years ago, that's different. But remember this, everybody. You're following up to add value. Now, how do we ensure that we don't pester people? Because I've had a lovely flurry of enquiries at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. And then, of course, it goes silent. So we have to follow it up. So I generally will follow, having spoken to them and given them a price and sent them a proposal in writing, and then it often goes quiet. I send 3 follow-ups, but on the third follow-up, or maybe the second, I say, look, you asked me for a proposal, and I always send a copy of the proposal. You asked me for a proposal in December. I've chased you up a couple of times. This is important, this phrase. Please give me guidance. If you don't want me to follow you up anymore, tell me, and I'll take you out of my follow-up file. And that way they can't accuse you of being a pest or a nuisance. But some of the other things, if I really got on with them very well, do you know what I do? I do a video to them, and it goes like this. Hi, Mark, it's Will Kintish here. Do you remember we met at the event in Florida and you asked me for a proposal? I've sent you a couple of nudges, follow-ups. Do me a favor, Mark. I don't like hearing no, but you know what? No is the second best answer after yes. So do me a favor, Mark. Send me a quick text to say, yes, let's catch up, or no, Will, the moment has passed and I don't want your services. So following up should not be a big issue as long as you ensure that you say, yes, we're going to do business, or tell me to get lost, and then you just move on. Our friend Peter Thompson came out with this. There is a postcode, or for you Americans, there is a zip code in London called SW3, which is an area called Chelsea. SW3. Some will, some won't. So what next? And that's what we have to do. When it comes to following up, we mustn't take it personally. It's just business. And we never know why they ignore us, apart from them being a bit rude. But you just have to shrug and get on with it. Well, have I covered everything you want me to cover? Those are the 4 areas of questions. Anything else you want to ask me?
Yeah, but I'm just nobody's asked a question yet. So we have 10 minutes left. So this is your chance to ask a question. If there's anything you want Will to go back over, or if you've got a question, now would be a great time to put it into the comments box. If I've missed a question, apologies, but the only question I did see is Phil said, will get a recording? And the answer is it's being streamed to my YouTube channel, so people can catch up later. But no questions come in yet. So let's talk a little bit about. Actually, I had 2 questions because we talked about the questions you should ask. From your experience, are people good at asking questions?
That's a great question. People are terrible at asking questions. I, Mark, have a 4-question rule. I meet you at an event, I say, tell me about this, tell me about that. I ask you 4 questions and you don't ask me anything. What message are you giving to me? That you're not interested? You don't want to talk to me? You know it all? At that point, and let's talk about this, which I missed out in the working the room, I'm afraid to tell you, after 4 questions, I am going to dump you. I am going to get rid of you at the event, right? Because you've indicated to me that you don't want to know anything about me. Fine, let me not waste your time, Mark Wickersham. I'm off. But I will be polite and I will be courteous with everybody. I'll say, well, and I'm probably going to have to lie at this point. I'll say, well, Mark, it's good to have met you. Enjoy the rest of the evening, and off I'll go. Now, that's called dumping people. It's just walking off and leaving them there. But there is, unless they have been rude to me, there is a better way of getting rid of people, and I call it parking people. So you and I, we've had a lovely conversation, and I've realized you don't know anybody in the room, and I might know 1 or 2, or if I don't, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to leave you there on your own, because that is a cruel thing to do, not good for networking. So what am I going to do with you, Mark? I'm going to say, Mark, shall we go and meet some others? Or there's my friend Peter Thompson over there. Let me introduce you to him. So I'm going to park you, Mark, on Peter, and then I'll perhaps leave the 2 of you, or I'll stay, as the case may be. But let me give you a quote. I'm sure you've heard of the lady. And if I was asked to give one quote when it comes to networking, it's from a lady called Maya Angelou. You've heard of her? American lady? No? Maybe not. Okay. No. Very, very, very famous American lady. She wrote 5 autobiographies. She had the most interesting life. Died in 2014. She came out with the following, not long before she died. She said, as I look back over my life, I've often forgotten what people said to me, and I've forgotten what people did to me. But I never forgot how people made me feel. And that is what networking is all about. It's nothing to do with your qualifications. It's nothing to do with how brilliant you are saving people tax. It's how you make them feel. Because if you don't make them feel good at that event, they'll never want to see you again.
Fascinating.
That's the key. True, isn't it? It's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where was I? I went to 100. It was my auntie's 100th birthday on Sunday, and we drove from London to Manchester. And there's a fella there I've known all my life. I don't like him. He's been a very, very clever fellow. He's a retired solicitor. Not once, but twice at the party, when I was talking to 2 different people, he came up and he said, oh, can I just borrow so-and-so? And he dragged the guy away while I was talking to him. Now, I just laughed. But for other people, I don't know how they would have felt. But he did it to me twice. Yeah. So, not good. Not nice. And I realized why I didn't like this guy, because he's rude. I've known him 60 years. He's never yet, once he did. I had a heart attack 6 months ago. I saw him a few weeks later. He asked me, have I recovered? He's never asked me a question yet. I met his son-in-law about 20 years ago, and his son-in-law came up to me and said, Will, can I ask you a personal question? I said, yeah, what? He said, and I'll change the guy's name. He said, does Bill ever ask you questions? And I laughed. I said, why do you say that, son-in-law? He says, well, he never asked me anything about me. This is his son-in-law he doesn't ask questions about, let alone everybody else. And yet, Mark, he was I don't know how he did it. He got an OBE. He was one of the most successful guys I've ever met as a lawyer. So, I mean, had it been nice, he'd have got a knighthood, I guess.
Yeah. Questions are so powerful. I know that Dale Carnegie talks about it in the book that you mentioned earlier, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I think that generally, certainly in our profession, we are not good at asking questions. And that applies whether it's networking. When we had Peter Thompson on the show, he was talking about the sales process and the questions that you ask. And I learned some years ago that when you're preparing for a meeting with a potential client, a sales meeting, most of us do the wrong. We spend most of our time preparing what we want to say about our offering, our service. And actually what we should do is spend much more time preparing what are the questions we're going to ask. The questions are much more important than us telling them what we can do. There is a question coming, but anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I do. I've got to say this. I heard it on the radio a year ago. When we went to school, we were judged on the quality of our answers. In the world I'm talking to you about, we're judged on the quality of our questions.
So true, so true. We have 4 minutes left. I've got a question from Deborah, but there's also a question I need to ask you, Will, that's really important as well. And that is, if anybody wants to find out more about you, what should they do? I'm guessing you gave some links to Sarah, so she will put them in the comments.
Well, I'm a global business, everybody. Of course, having done lots on Zoom. So if you'd like me to talk in America, everybody, just get in touch. My website is www.kintish.co.uk. Simple as that. I would love you to link in with me, but please, if you're going to link in with me, make sure you send me a personal invitation saying that you heard me talk on Mark's presentation, rather than just sending, because again, Mark, if you send that cold default message as a start of a relationship on LinkedIn, that is bad news. It's like going up to somebody at a networking event and going, hello, and walking off. So please, everybody, I'd love you to link in with me, but make sure that you find the button that says add a note, and then add a note, and that's the best way to start it. And what I will send you, everyone, is my 28-page, and it's all pictures, 28-page pocket guide of how to work a room with all the stuff we've talked about, but you'll get that as a thank you for linking in with me. So that might be useful for you.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that would be excellent. A couple of quick questions. We've got 2 minutes. Deborah said, Will, thank you for the wonderful advice. As an accountant, were you ever introverted?
No.
No.
Nope.
I can tell you, I knew that the first time I met you. You are definitely not an introvert.
It's just my DNA.
Yeah.
I went to my friend Malcolm, who is a textbook introvert. I went to his 60th birthday and I said to him, my goodness, Malcolm, we've known each other for 60 years. And he's totally different from me. He says, I remember when we were in the playground at 5, you were still leading the gang around the playground even then. I mean, I didn't remember it, but he obviously remembered it. So no, Deborah, never been an introvert.
Okay. And Linda Rolfe from Florida says, what do you do next when someone says, let's get together soon? You say yes, and then they go silent.
I know it's scary. You pick up the phone, or you send them a video text or an ordinary text, say, hey, it was great to meet you. I haven't heard from you. And then suggest 2 dates. Shall we meet next Wednesday or Thursday? Don't let it go. People are very, very busy. Life is all about priority. Remember this. So at the early start of a relationship, you're not very priority. So you have to take the lead and follow it up. Remember that. If you want me to give final close, Mark, to young professional people, I say this to them. If you want to be successful, there's 2 things you have to do. Number 1 is to be visible online and face-to-face. And number 2 is to be proactive. Don't wait for things to happen. Take the initiative. Take that first step.
Great advice. Well, that's been awesome. I knew you'd be awesome because you had a huge impact on my career when I was a very unconfident networker. And after you first taught me, I then joined BNI and had great fun at BNI for many years. Good. Anyway, Will, thank you so much. Your links for everybody, the links Sarah's put in, there's 2 links that are in there. So make sure you check out those 2 links with Will. I have One quick announcement before we part, and then I'll play out with some music. But let me just finally say one more time to Will, thank you so much. That's been awesome. Thank you for sharing so much great stuff. Okay, one quick announcement for you. Next event. Our next event is next week, Wednesday, March the 15th. We have a live stream. I have another special guest. Her name is Tatiana Tsoir, and she's going to be talking about how to offer a fractional CFO service, Chief Financial Officer. So I know that's a question I get a lot from people. How do I, if bookkeepers, accountants, how do I offer a CFO, a virtual CFO service? She calls it fractional CFO service. That's with Tatiana next Wednesday. So hopefully I will see you there. If you've enjoyed the session, if you enjoyed Will, which I hope you did, then click that thumbs up, that like button. And so we know I can see lots of thumbs up already coming already. So just click that thumbs up. And I will see you probably next week online. I'm going to play out with some music just for a few minutes. Gives me a chance to catch up with all the comments in the chat box. See you all soon. Bye for now.